Evening guys, Done19792 back again for a quick video on OE Audio twin 12-inch subwoofers with a built-in amplifier. Now, first of all, I need to get some essentials, so I'll be right back. Just a second. Bam, there it is. 1L cup of tea. So, I've had some questions about these subs and breaking them in. Same with any sub really, you got to break them in. When I was new to the sound system side of things, it was you're always looking and searching for things and hoping that you do it right. I'd recommend when installing any sound system, start with the wiring. Get decent wiring, get O gauge power cable and a higher amp fuse. You want to sort of go anything from sort of 120 upwards, especially when you're running a dual sub. A lot of people diss these speakers, say that they're crap. They're not. They're a good low entry level subwoofer. I've had these for 8 years and they're still banging. They still rock the car. Alright, they're not shaking everything off the car, but they sound good in the car. They sound good outside the car. A lot of people have liked how they sound. So yeah, start off with O gauge wiring. That'll be your first thing. Now with this, the power points, which is these, cannot accept O gauge cable. They will take, I think, up to a 4, but it's worth sort of measuring, possibly an 8 gauge. So what you need to do is get a reduction block which goes from O gauge to 8 gauge, and if I can remember rightly, it would look like this. Actually, what gauge wiring is this? Because this is what I had running on it. This is, let me see what the wiring it be. Yes. 1 second, people. Why can I not see what gauge it is? Nuisance. There you go. 8AWG, 8 gauge. So you get 8 gauge wiring. I only done this so it could have the O gauge running into that. You can clearly see how fat O gauge would be. And then I had it running off 8 gauge into, I think that was a, what amp fuse is that? Let me pull the cover off and I'll be able to tell you. No, there's no writing on it. I think that was a 60 amp 60 amp fuse to run any other amps. But basically, shit, dropped it. Basically, I had the O gauge running into that. Then I had that running into the OE box. And then obviously this splitting off into this amp, which I was running my shelf speakers, which I no longer have because I've upgraded my sound system. I've upgraded the speakers in the back, and the box is too big, so I can't have a parcel shelf unless I modify it, and I haven't had time to do that. These are also going, one of these is going to go in the car at some point. I do get a lot of power drain, but you won't need this with the OE setup. You don't need to go mad with power. Also, this was the kind of fuse I was on about, 150 amp fuse. Obviously it'll have a bigger fuse, you'll get a bigger fuse mounting with the O gauge, so that's for smaller stuff. You want something big like that. And the reason I say that is because I French fried a 60 amp when I started off with a single O gauge, so you can get blocks like that, Phoenix Gold, but you only need one with 2 reductions. You can go more if you really want, but yeah, when I started I had a single OE and it come with a wiring kit which was only 60 amp, and when I moved up to the double, after a while it literally melted the fuse holder and everything in the engine compartment, because obviously it's too powerful. So back at it, that's enough waffling. So you start with the O gauge, that's important, because anything smaller and you do, I don't know, it just reduces the amount of power that the speakers can get. And I know I was going from O gauge into 8 gauge. The difference being is that the 8 gauge was only, I think it was 15 inches long, the wire. So it's only got to travel a foot in smaller cable. So you're getting a lot of power coming up right near the sub. And then it's like as if you had a battery in the boot going to the sub, you'd get a better sound out of it because your power is more direct type thing. I don't know. It did make a difference when I moved on to the O gauge. It definitely sounded a lot clearer, louder, and yeah, better. Anyway, enough of that. So make sure you get your wiring right. Now, bedding them in, you want to run the speakers for no less than 30 hours. Yeah, so, you know, if you use your sound system on the way to work, it takes you an hour to get to work, calculate that time. Or, you know, you can roughly guess, but maybe make a log of how long you've been in the car, how long you've been running the speakers for. If you're like me, I've got them on constantly, every day. I'm using my sound system. So, when setting your speakers up, you've got 2 little dials. One's your level, which is your gain, and the other one is your low pass filter. Now, a lot of people don't really understand what a low pass filter is. Don't really understand what happens when you mess about with a low pass filter. So if you listen to drum and bass, or well, anything really, if you want the low tones, deep bass, then turn that gain like I have to the lowest point, which is, wrong one, 40 hertz. Because when you start going up the scale to, say you go from 40 hertz to 50 hertz and so on, when you go up the scale, the bass note changes, the bass frequency changes. So you get more of the punch bass rather than the low tones. You'll start to lose the lower bass and get more of the higher frequency bass. Me, I run it on maximum bottom 40 hertz because that's when you get the lowest rumbles, and it works on most tunes I listen to. I listen to drum and bass, rap, house, you name it, old school, hardcore, jungle, sometimes your average tune. So anyway, if you want the low rumbles, you want to go low on your low pass filter. Now, this level is as far as I ever took them up in my car, and I have a Focus obviously, which is a little over halfway. Now my stereo goes up to 50. I run it up to what do I turn it, 37. So I've still got a fair way to go. So I weren't thrashing the arse out of these speakers, but I was still getting a loud, clear sound. Now if you run in stock stereo speakers that come with a car, if you got a Focus and you've got an aftermarket stereo like I have, which is better because otherwise you have to, if you've got a Focus and you're gonna put a sound system in it, get rid of the stereo that's in it, because it ain't got auxiliary and you have to splice into the speaker wires in this whole load of crap. Just get a new faceplate that accepts a standard stereo and Bob's your uncle, and make sure that aftermarket stereo's got auxiliary leads. Don't buy none of them cheap Chinese Android things because they're crap. Just get a basic. If you want music and sound and good sound, just get a basic system, basic stereo. Anyway, run all your door speakers through crossovers. That's a must. Yeah, and then when you set your stereo, go into your bass settings, set the bass at 0, and then obviously turn your mids and your treble up, because once you run your door speakers through crossovers, they won't produce any bass. They might get a little bit through them, but not a lot. They then become your mid-range and tops and sort of stay that way, and it gives them a bit of a longer lasting life because they're not being thrashed with bass. All the bass should come from here. It's a basic setup, basically, but sounds good. Everyone that's heard it loves the sound of it, like I say. So yeah, when you start breaking them in, find the level of the loudest level you're comfortable listening to on your stereo with the tops and the mids, and then while you've got it at that level, start to raise the gain up until you start hearing the bass come through. I normally recommend going around just under quarter of the way for them 30 hours, and never exceed the level on your stereo that you would play at. So if you play at, say, 25, sort of adjust it to that. Then after your 30 hours, just move it a tad. Leave it a week or two, or say another 10 hours, and move it a bit more. I mean, this might be overkill bedding in, but it works for mine. It works for me. I'm doing it on the new setup. Also, I'm not sure if it's true or not, but I think it is. But when you use a remote line, whatever you set that level to, the max level on the remote line will be that. So when you turn it down, it will turn the gain down. But when you turn the remote line up, it will only go up as high as that. How true that is, I'm not too sure, because I've never really looked into that. But yeah, I generally don't use a remote line. They're just another pain in the arse, but you can. It's a good way of being able to turn your bass down when you go down your road and you want to be quiet at night, but you still want your tunes on. And yeah, that's about it. So 30 hours bedding in. I'm sticking to that routine, and just after the 30, take it up a little tiny tad, run it in for a few hours, and then go up a little bit more, run it in for a few hours, just to get the rubbers and the subs moving, get them used to moving at that rate, slowly but surely. And then once you're ready, I mean, like I said at the beginning of the video, so I've moved it now, I don't know the exact point, but it was probably around there, a little over halfway. And that was how I run them for 8 years, and they rocked. They absolutely rocked. I've upgraded now to the Edge subs. I'm going to do a video on them at some point, but they really rumble. They are disgustingly rumbly, but that's another video to come. But yeah, hope this helps you newbies out there, because I was a newbie once and didn't really know much about nothing. But yeah, anyway, take care, like, share, whatever. I don't care, because like I say, I'm not one of these constant YouTubers. I just like to help a few people out, and people asked me about certain things, so that's the reason I've made this video. Anyway, take care, peace.